I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Obviously, I'm in a little bit of a new space. I just moved to the city of Chicago for the summer to live with my aunt, and so that's the room that you're seeing me in. I have an internship that's related to my degree in political science, so please like down below if you are excited for all of the internship-based videos that are going to be coming this summer, starting next week. Get excited about that. I've started filming it and I'm really excited for what I have to share with you guys. This week there have been some current events that I felt really drew out a ugly part of our generation in the way that we discuss political issues, and as a political science major and someone who really believes that our generation is essential to how the policy of our country is really going to be decided, I thought that I would take this week's video to talk a little bit about the abortion laws and what has happened this month, the facts of what's happened in these couple of states, as well as some of the discourse that I've seen, as well as share just some of the social media that I've seen positively, just to wrap it up with a little bit of a positive tone. So that being said, let's hit it. So the most recent abortion news you've probably heard about is the most restrictive current policy is that of being signed in Alabama. On May 14th, the governor of Alabama signed in the most restrictive abortion policy, and that is banning abortions as soon as a physician can detect a fetus's heartbeat, which is as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. This means that this is now an abortion performed this early into the pregnancy, being up as early as 6 weeks. A physician could be charged with a felony. The punishment has been imposed on the physician, not on the woman receiving the abortion, and has been signed into law. So currently will be imposed in 6 months, I believe, has been the rollover date on that, as to when that policy will become inactive. And this is just one of the supposed heartbeat bills. So according to the Alabama Human Life Protection Act, this fetus is now defined at 6 weeks, or when that heartbeat can be determined, as a human or a life for a homicide purpose, which means that it can be held in court criminally culpable and civilly liable. Although the legislation has been put in that the doctor should be held responsible for the abortion, not the mother. And it is unclear whether or not murder trials or civilly wrongful death suits or anything of that nature will be sought after an illegal abortion, if that were to occur. But I'm sure there will be openings for that should a wrongful abortion, or an illegal abortion, I guess, in the state of Alabama at this point. I'm not sure if wrongful is the correct word. That depends on what you believe. But in this case, in the state of Alabama, it is now illegal based on the current legislation. So yeah, that is the Alabama law. Following suit, 2 other states, as well as a couple of other southern states, have been talking about these heartbeat bills. This is not the first of its kind. It is not the first that this is hearing of it. It just in a lot of ways because it's super restrictive. And a woman signed it in, just kind of got caught by the press, and that is fairly common. Sometimes there's a lot going on in politics behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see as the general public of America, and we kind of overlook it until it really makes a big splash in the media. And so these heartbeat bills really have been going on behind the scenes in a couple other states. So in Georgia, May 7th, they signed one in, although theirs is 8 weeks, and the physician does have to check and see if there is a heartbeat at 8 weeks before they could perform that abortion. And so if it was prior to 8 weeks, but they do allow up to 20 weeks if there was a case of rape or incest, but only if that person does file a police report. So that's the legislation in Georgia, and that was signed in May 7th, which was a week before the Alabama legislation was signed in, but came about the same time. And in Missouri, Their bill is a heartbeat bill, very similar, but it's still in their state Congress. So it is still in the process of being formulated, which means that anything I could tell you still could be changed before it gets signed and put into law. So anything I could tell you could be false by the time I even post this video. So I don't want to give you any false information, but it is being seriously discussed in Missouri, as far north as Missouri, and there are plenty of other states in the South that are really seriously discussing these heartbeat bills. So it is not just Alabama alone. There are a lot of states that are following suit, so it is quite the epidemic. On the other side of the spectrum, you also have states like New York and Virginia that are looking at opening up restrictions facing third trimester abortions, and looking into extending the abortions. And while that hasn't been most recently in the month of May, I just did want to include there are other states that are looking into opening the restrictions to abortions. And so if you do want to look into that, look up New York and Virginia. Virginia's is proposed, New York's is on the books, but has not been put in a proposed start date. There was a stay based on some other research that came out. So do look into those. They're opening up restrictions versus putting them on. So there is states working on both sides, but I do think that that's something, looking into discussion about states having different roles in abortion versus states having the same roles, and that's something that in itself could open a lot of discussion to have with your peers. And I think that's something worth discussing is, does Roe v. Wade give states the right to take different stances on what's right about abortion and what isn't, or does it just legalize it and say that this is how it is? And should that be a federally regulated or a state regulated right? And I think that in itself opens a lot of discourse. But so there are states on both ends of the spectrum trying to take their stand and prove that they believe in a certain way. So that in itself has plenty of discourse. But so if you're looking for something a little bit different than the discourse that's currently going on in the media, New York and Virginia do have some opening of restrictiveness currently. The last thing I wanted when creating this video was to enforce my views on anyone watching it. I think the last thing that I need to do is stand up here and tell you what to think and tell you what to believe. That is not what I wanted out of a YouTube platform. I don't need that validation to believe what I believe, and I don't think it's going to be helpful or useful or help change the world in any way. I believe what I believe because I think I'm right and I've done a lot of research, but it comes from my experiences, and I do understand that there are plenty of people sitting on the other side of this camera that have had very, very different experiences and experienced very different things and have very different beliefs, and also have very different policy backgrounds and look at education in a different way and look at facts in a different way than I do maybe. And I believe that all of those people are necessary for us to get to the ultimate solution and to get to the right answers. And so for me to sit here and to tell you this is what I believe and this is what you should think is not what I'm trying to accomplish with this. I wanted to talk about this video and I wanted to put out some facts and to inform you a little bit so that you could go back to your friends and your high schools and your colleges and your workplaces and wherever you are and wherever your friends are and your family members are and whatever place you feel comfortable talking about these things, and think and engage and work with something that's going to challenge you and work with something that is challenging a lot of the American people and something that really is a hot button issue and really does matter to a lot of people and is going to change the way that our world functions and the way that our community functions and the way that we think about the way that we think about life, the way that we think about when life begins. And that definition has been grappled with for generations and generations, and I think it's finally time that our generation puts it to rest. And so at some point somebody's going to have to stand up and say we're going to put an end to it. And I think it's going to be a hot button issue for a very long time, but I want to give you guys the tools to take that back and to have a real discussion about it, and not just a yelling or here's what I believe or an emotional attack. I want to give you guys the tools to do something with it in a way that I feel like may grow both you and the other person you're having a discussion with, whether you're agreeing or disagreeing. So that being said, I did share a lot of facts that seemed to support one side, but that's just because a lot of the information came out on that side, which is why I really wanted to bring up New York, Virginia, in case you were looking for those kinds of facts or information. But yeah, so these are a couple of ways that I think are really important to having conversations with people. It's a little bit easier when you agree, but especially when you disagree, to having thought-provoking conversations about issues that really mean something. Here we go. So the first one is to be kind and respectful. Everyone has a valid reason to be in the conversation, and everyone is welcome in the conversation. I do understand the perspective that females deserve and have earned the right to be at the forefront of the decision-making process about their own bodies. But I also believe that we're not going to get to the place that we want to be by being separate but equal. It's not the way to get where we want to go. We can't get to these places by being split. We have to be a society united. And so the only way we can do that is by working with the other half of our society and using them as allies and training them and by training them and teaching them what we want from them and how to work with them in issues that affect us and issues that affect us as a whole, because parenting doesn't just affect women. Parenting can affect men as well. And so as much as having a child just affects the physical body of a woman, parenting can affect men. And so it's about learning and growing and working together. And so I think being kind and respectful and remembering that not women may have a different stake in abortions, that men do have a stake as well, but also that men need to respect the stake that women do have in it, and that men will never understand the stake that women do have. And then you also have to recognize that the LGBTQ population has an entirely different stake in this conversation, entirely, and that you have to recognize that too, that it can't just be a women and a men battle, that we have an entire population of people then that you're leaving out, and that's not a functional conversation either, because then you're missing a whole group of people that really care and want this country to grow and change and actually, are part of the society that we live in. So it's really important to remember to be kind and respectful and engage with everyone that's part of the conversation, because everyone belongs here. Everyone belongs in this conversation. Going off of that, I think it's really important to remember to be thoughtful. Support what you believe with facts and figures. I think it's important to do your research before you enter an argument. It's not a bad thing to believe whatever it is you believe, but you can't just walk in and be like, I believe this because someone told me to believe that. I think that's the most frustrating thing in the entire world, especially coming from a background where I am beyond interested in a lot of these issues, and I've always been the first person to admit that I'm wrong or I'm undereducated on an issue, and asking someone to explain to me why they think what they do, and then going back and doing the research and formulating my opinion. I think you really need to be backed up on something. Whatever it is you believe what you want, but you gotta have something to support it, and it can't just be because I say so. There's plenty of research out there on anything and everything there is you want to know. So just go find it. Go find whatever it is you want to you want to believe in it? Fine. There's research out there, and go find it. And then also make sure you recognize your privilege and also your expertise that you bring to the situation. Being a Caucasian female, gay woman, Caucasian female, gay woman, Caucasian gay female. Those are just 3 of my characteristics that can either bring me expertise, privilege, or can sometimes also make me disprivileged in certain situations. And so, like in abortion, sometimes abortion may not affect me because I'm in a non-fertile relationship, but I'm also a woman, so that may affect me because I may want to have a child one day, and abortion, it is a woman's issue, so to speak. And so that is although I'm not a huge fan of that term. Those are things that you have to remember that you bring into the conversation. And then you also need to recognize the privilege and the expertise and all of that of the other person sitting across from you, that they may bring in something different than you, and things that are very visible. I'm blonde, I'm blue-eyed. Those are things you can see. But the fact that I'm dating a girl, you don't know that just by looking at me. And so that's really important. The fact that I have mental illness, you don't know that by just looking at me. And so that's really important to know that the person sitting across from you, you may not know what they bring into the conversation, and being respectful, knowledgeable, and patient with that person, that they may bring something different to the table than you do. And that's really important in these conversations. Alright, so this one's a nice little balancing act. So it's really important to separate your personal from the policy while also avoiding the hypocritical. Bear with me on this. What I want for my body may not be what I believe is best for the country. But also, what I believe is best for the country may also be a hypothetical that I cannot achieve myself. Follow me? So that's really easy to apply to abortion. But it also can be applied to a lot, like I formulated that to abortion because that's what I'm talking about. But it can be applied to a lot of other things. But I'm going to stick with abortion because that's what we're talking about today. But so, if I have a certain opinion for myself personally, I may feel differently about the country. I may also feel the same about the country. But again, it's about separating yourself and the country and remembering that sometimes things that work in a very, very small dynamic, or you personally, you or your community, you, your family unit, may not work on a larger scale. And it's making sure you look outside of that. Like in the case of freedom of religion, just because your family practices a certain religion doesn't mean just because your family practices XYZ doesn't mean that if this family practices religion X and this family practices religion Z, doesn't mean that you believe that everyone should practice your religion. You believe in freedom of religion for the country, but you believe in religion XYZ for your family. So in the case of abortion, you may believe in something specific for you, something different for the country. Make sense? Cool. So the point of this video was not to tell you what to think. And I hope you haven't gotten that. I'm going to share some of my favorite social media posts that I've seen so far. For the most part, I'm going to explain like some of the things that I really liked about them afterwards. You're probably going to catch a little bit about my opinion. I hope you'll remember that I don't mind if you obviously believe a different way, because I love discourse. I would love to have a conversation with you in a very honest way, a very honest and respectful way. B, I also may have a different personal opinion versus policy opinion, so remember that these things may be a little bit contradictory, and that may be why. C, if you don't want to see them, this is a good time to click away. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you don't already, and I will see you next Wednesday. No hard feelings, really. But if you would like to see some of the social media posts that I have seen that I really enjoy, I do think they're good. I'm really excited to share them with you. So let's get into that part. So first up, we have a post from The Daily Show coming up on your right in the thumbnail. I do not know who the guest is with Trevor Noah, but I will put it down here in the type. Do you see it? Do you see it? Is it down there? Yeah. Okay, but I'm going to read to you what she says and then explain to you why I really like what she said. Anti-choice people are not trying to stop abortion. They're trying to legislate who can and can't have abortions, because conservative politicians, their wives and mistresses and daughters will always be able to get an abortion somewhere. All anti-choice rhetoric does is keep people trapped in poverty for generations. That's the goal, and if it wasn't the goal, they would spend their time and money on comprehensive sex education, free birth control, and free contraception. So what I really liked about that one was that I worked with Planned Parenthood last fall, so fall of my sophomore year. And if you really want to be appalled by something that we are lacking good policy about, look up sex education. It is pretty bad. And I think that that is from a extensive point of view. I think that all sides would agree, if I'm being honest. And if you don't, I would love to hear from you, because I'd be very interested to hear your opinion, because for the most part I can see both sides of an argument, even if I have an opinion of one side or the other. But yeah, would love to hear from you. But slide into the DMs. But anyway, sex education. So I worked at Planned Parenthood, and they're working really hard from every step. I know they have a really reputation for being like an abortions clinic, but that was one thing that I was really attracted by their organization, was their work with sex education. And I think that that really is the key to lowering teen pregnancies, unplanned pregnancies, and like unprepared maybe parents, is increased sex education, contraception, those kinds of things. I don't think that abortions either way are the key, either unrestricted abortions or heavily restricted abortions. I don't think either way is the way to limiting those things, or unplanned pregnancies. So yeah, that's why I really liked that, because I really think it hit the root of the issue. And I also think that she addressed the root of the policy, that the policy wasn't really targeting the root of the issue that it was supposed to, that it was really pushing along an institutionalized discrimination against impoverished people, because those who really want an abortion can drive out of state in Alabama and just get it in another state, whereas those who really do rely on like reduced services at like a Planned Parenthood won't be able to get those services, because they won't be able to drive out of state. That's something they can't do. So, liked that one on the Daily Show. Gonna have to insert her name, but you killed it. You hit the nail on the head. Did great. Coming up, I'm gonna have to learn your name, and I'll know it forever, and I will tell everyone that you killed it. I'm really sorry that I don't know off the top of my head. Okay, coming up on the left, Cory Booker. He actually tweeted this and then posted it on his Instagram. I'm going to read you what he says. Men, it's on us to speak out too. It's on us to take action. Not because women are our mothers, wives, daughters. Because women are people, and all people deserve to control their own bodies. And so why I really liked this one was, not only did he call out men and ask them to be a part of this movement. I chose this one over the one that was going around about only women should be allowed to legislate their bodies, which, as much as I understood that the frustration behind, I think it was 26 men making this rule about something that didn't affect physically their bodies, I really do think that this is a community issue, and I really do think that the only way that we're going to fight this is if everybody unites and we work together. I also liked that he wasn't just calling them out because of their relationships to these people. I think it's really frustrating when the only reason that men are asked to put value in a woman is because they are of value to that person, whereas he asked them to put value in a woman because they are a person, just as much as he would ask them to put value in a man because they're a person. And so I thought that was a really, really strong post for that reason, which is why I made the list. So coming up on your right, we have Ava DuVernay, and this was posted on Tracy Ella Ross. I think this came up on somebody I follow, and I just reposted it. And it says, don't move forward after reading this like everything is normal. Don't shake your head at Alabama, then keep going about your day. Realize that this is a warning. It's Alabama and abortion today. It's you and your rights tomorrow. Your silence will not save you, so speak up. And so my sister and I have been joking in the car that we wouldn't even be surprised if they took away our right to vote tomorrow. That it was just abortion today, but we've moved back in our rights. And I think, as a woman in a non-fertile relationship right now, I don't think that abortion will really affect me. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't say anything about it if I don't believe it's right. And so I think that that's something that people forget, is that just because it's not affecting you in this immediate moment, doesn't mean that you should leave it alone. And it reminds me of that quote where it was like, they came for these people, and then they came for these people, and I didn't speak up, and they came for these people, and I didn't speak up, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to say anything. And so I think it's just a real big call to action that, like, hey, these are your friends, these are your neighbors, these are your sisters, and as much as these are people, like, these are people, and a lot of people are affected by this. It's not just a really small population. A lot of people are affected by this, and this is something that is changing the face of our country. And if it's something you really believe in, then speak up about it. Like, fine, fight for it. Cool, like, that's fine too. But like, let's duel this out. Like this, let's make these decisions not because everybody ignored it. Let's make them because we fought for what we believed in. And then the last one coming up on your left is on a feminist post, and it's from Laura Witt, and that's her Twitter handle, and she's screenshotted a bunch of these tweets, so I'm just gonna read them all to you and then give you a general gist. I'm not here to debate the morality of abortion. I think socially that moral standards have been constructed to benefit cisgendered heterosexual white men and impose severe restrictive and dangerous limitations on marginalized groups. Some people benefit from being perceived as inherently good, while others are perceived as being inherently bad. Who gets characterized as either depends on various social structures, including race, gender, class, etc. Anyone who deviates from any of our socially created norms is inherently battling against a society which projects ideas of moral versus immoral onto them. Women don't give up about patriarchal standards, are seen as immoral no matter what they do. BIPOC, disabled folks, fat folks, anyone of a marginalized gender deviates from white supremacist, ableist, sexist, queerphobic, transphobic, classist standards. We are inherently immoral. Abortion, a life-saving, necessary, and vital decision and procedure, is always going to be perceived as immoral, not because of life, but because of who needs it, because of who it saves. I don't care if you don't believe in abortion. It's not a belief system. It's a medical procedure. You don't need to believe in it for it to be a fact, for it to be necessary, for it to exist. You can scream about your beliefs and your supposed morals all you want, but save yourself some time and do something more productive, like take a toilet brush and shove it into your mouth. Neither one of my 2 abortions were difficult decisions, nor have I ever regretted them. I am in part where I am today because of these 2 decisions, and 2 of my exes are where they are today because I made these decisions, and I am proud of myself. This is a Laura, obviously. Laura, I frankly don't give about the construct of morality as decided by an oppressive society. The work of liberation and anti-oppression has been done by people considered immoral by these standards, and frankly, all the people I love are too. I also have yet to feel or experience single negative consequences to getting an abortion. Both of mine left me with pure joy and relief. And so I think that what I really liked generally about her message was that her message was really inclusive. It really was based in fact, as much as it definitely had a thread of emotion through it. It was definitely based in fact, and it also incorporated her personal experience. And so as much as it was a little bit volatile, I think that all of these have been a little bit volatile. I think that this whole discussion has been a little bit volatile. I do understand that there's a lot of emotion surrounding a lot of these. I really liked the inclusiveness of hers, and I think that it was really well said in that case that she really thought this through. And so as much as whether or not you agree with her, I think that you can have a conversation with her about what you believed in, and if you could bring her a fact-based argument, you and her could have a conversation. And so that's what I really liked about that post, was that it was based in fact, and had a thread of research throughout it. Yeah, and inclusiveness and respect. So that being said, that is my video for you this week. A little bit different, but I hope you enjoyed it. And so if you haven't already, please subscribe, join the girl gang. I post videos every Wednesday, kind of, but normally every Wednesday, and get excited for some of the new internship videos that I'll have being posted as you join me on this journey. yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. So like, comment, subscribe. I know I already said that, but do it. Please do it. And I'll see you next week. So I'm gonna take my finger guns away. I've definitely used them too much.